The school day at Maplewood High started like any other, with the usual hustle and bustle filling the air. Students poured into the building, laughing, chatting, and rushing to their lockers before the first bell rang. Among them was Emily, a quiet sophomore who always seemed to fade into the background. She wasn't loud or flashy, far from it. Emily preferred staying unnoticed because, in her experience, being noticed often led to unwanted attention. Emily had a condition that made walking difficult for her. Her left leg didn't work the way it should, forcing her to rely on a cane to move around. It wasn't something she liked talking about, but it was a part of her life she couldn't hide. Every morning, she would carefully plan her route through the hallways, choosing quieter paths where she wouldn't have to jostle with the crowds. But even then, there were days when she couldn't escape the chaos. That particular morning, Emily woke up earlier than usual. The thought of facing another busy day weighed heavily on her mind. Still, she decided to get to school early, hoping to avoid the rush of students flooding the halls during the usual arrival time. If she could reach her locker without running into too many people, maybe she'd have a few moments of peace before the first class began. As she stepped out of her house, the crisp autumn air greeted her. Leaves crunched underfoot as she made her way to the bus stop. The ride to school was uneventful, just the way she liked it. When she arrived, the parking lot was nearly empty, and only a handful of teachers' cars dotted the area. For once, everything seemed to be going smoothly. Inside the school, the corridors were eerily silent compared to the madness they would become later. Emily took a deep breath, grateful for the calm. With slow but steady steps, she made her way toward her locker, gripping her cane tightly. The rhythmic tapping sound it made against the tiled floor echoed softly in the quiet hallway. It was almost soothing, but peace never lasted long for Emily. As she reached her locker and began fiddling with the combination lock, a group of older boys appeared at the far end of the hallway. They were juniors, or maybe seniors, and well-known troublemakers. Their names weren't important. What mattered was their reputation. These boys thrived on making others feel small. Whether it was teasing freshmen, vandalizing bathrooms, or skipping class, they always found ways to stir up trouble. At first, Emily didn't pay much attention to them. She assumed they'd pass by without noticing her. After all, why would anyone care about a quiet girl struggling to open her locker? But fate had different plans. One of the boys spotted her cane leaning against the wall beside her and nudged his friends. A smirk spread across his face as he pointed in her direction. The group exchanged glances, and within seconds, they changed course, heading straight for Emily. Her heart sank as she realized what was happening. There was no escape now. They were closing in. The leader of the group, a tall boy with messy hair and an arrogant grin, stopped right in front of her. His friends flanked him, forming a loose semicircle that blocked her path. Emily froze, clutching her cane like a lifeline. She wanted to shrink away, to disappear entirely, but there was nowhere to go. Well, look what we have here," the boy said, his tone dripping with mockery. "What's wrong with your legs, huh? Can't walk properly?" Emily didn't respond. She kept her eyes down, focusing on the scuffed toes of her shoes. Maybe if she ignored them, they'd lose interest and leave her alone. But ignoring them only fueled their amusement. "Hey, I'm talking to you," the boy snapped, louder this time. He crouched down slightly so he could look her in the eye. "You deaf or something?" His friends laughed, egging him on. The sound of their laughter bounced off the walls, amplifying Emily's humiliation. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Crying would only give them more ammunition. Then, without warning, the boy reached out and grabbed her cane. Emily gasped, instinctively trying to hold on to it, but he was stronger. With a swift tug, he yanked it out of her grasp and held it up triumphantly like a trophy. "Look at this thing," he exclaimed, waving it around dramatically. "Is this supposed to make you cool or something?" "Pathetic." His words stung worse than the loss of her cane. Without it, Emily felt exposed, vulnerable. Standing upright was already a challenge for her, and now without support, she wobbled precariously. Panic bubbled inside her chest as she tried to maintain her balance. The boy tossed the cane to one of his friends, who caught it effortlessly and proceeded to inspect it like it was some kind of bizarre artifact. Bet she can't even take 2 steps without this, the second boy sneered, tossing the cane back to the leader. The game continued, each toss accompanied by cruel remarks and raucous laughter. Emily stood rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear and shame. Other students passing by either pretended not to notice or joined in the jeering. No one came to her. Had minutes ticked by, though to Emily it felt like hours. Finally, bored with their antics, the boys threw the cane down the hallway, letting it clatter loudly against the floor. Then, with satisfied smirks, they turned and walked away, leaving Emily standing alone amidst the wreckage of her dignity. She didn't move immediately. Instead, she remained frozen, staring at the spot where her cane lay several feet away. Her hands trembled as she debated whether to retrieve it or wait until the hallway cleared. Humiliation burned hot in her cheeks and tears threatened to spill over again. How could anyone be so cruel? What had she ever done to deserve this? It wasn't until a soft voice broke through her thoughts that Emily finally snapped out of her. Someone was calling her name gently, asking if she was okay. Slowly, she looked up to see a familiar face, a girl she recognized from some of her classes. Layla. Layla knelt beside Emily, picking up the cane and handing it back to her with a reassuring smile. "Are you all right?" she asked, her tone filled with genuine concern. Emily nodded weakly, though the pain in her chest told a different story. For the first time since the ordeal began, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, not everyone in the world was cruel. As Layla approached Emily, her heart ached for the younger girl. She had seen the entire scene unfold from across the hall, and it left her feeling both angry and helpless. Watching someone treat another human being with such cruelty was something Layla couldn't ignore. Though she didn't know Emily well, they weren't close friends or even in the same social circles, she recognized the look on Emily's face. It was a mixture of fear, embarrassment, and defeat, emotions Layla herself had experienced more times than she cared to admit. Layla wasn't new to Maplewood High, but she wasn't exactly one of the popular kids either. As a black girl in a school where most students looked nothing like her, she often felt out of place. People sometimes made assumptions about her based on stereotypes they'd picked up from movies or TV shows. Some teachers underestimated her abilities, while other students whispered behind her back, questioning whether she truly belonged there. Over time, Layla learned to tune out the negativity and focus on what mattered, proving them wrong. But today, seeing Emily being bullied, something inside her shifted. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was about standing up for someone who clearly needed help. When Layla knelt beside Emily and handed her the cane, she noticed how tightly Emily gripped it, as if letting go meant losing her only source of stability, not just physically but emotionally too. Her eyes were red and puffy, though she tried hard not to cry. Layla admired that strength, even in the face of such cruelty. "Are you okay?" Layla asked again, keeping her voice soft and steady. She wanted Emily to feel safe, to know that not everyone around her was an enemy. When Emily finally nodded, it was barely noticeable, but Layla took it as a sign that she was willing to engage. What those boys did, it wasn't right, Layla continued, glancing down the hallway where the bullies had disappeared. "You didn't deserve that." "No one does." Emily hesitated before speaking, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just wanted to get through the day without anyone noticing me," she admitted, staring at the floor. "But I guess that's impossible." Layla frowned, shaking her head slightly. "You shouldn't have to hide because of who you are or what you need to get by. That cane isn't a weakness, it's part of what makes you strong. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Though Emily didn't respond immediately, Layla could see the gears turning in her mind. Maybe her words were sinking in, or maybe Emily was simply too overwhelmed to process them fully. Either way, Layla decided not to push further. Instead, she stood up, offering Emily a hand. "Come on," she said gently. "Let's get you to class. You don't have to deal with this alone." For the first time since the incident, Emily allowed herself to trust someone else. With Layla's help, she steadied herself and began walking toward their shared classroom. Along the way, Layla kept talking, not about the bullying, but about random things to distract Emily. She mentioned how much she hated math homework, how the cafeteria food always tasted like cardboard, and how ridiculous Mr. Thompson's tie choices were. By the time they reached the classroom door, Emily managed a small smile. It wasn't much, but it was progress. Once inside, Layla sat next to Emily, ignoring the curious stares from other students. Throughout the lesson, she kept checking on Emily, making sure she was holding up okay. When the teacher called on Emily to answer a question, Layla gave her an encouraging nod, silently cheering her on. To Layla's relief, Emily answered correctly, earning a rare moment of praise from the teacher. For a brief second, Emily seemed to forget about the earlier humiliation. But as the period dragged on, Layla found it harder and harder to concentrate on her own work. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the bullies and their cruel behavior. Who did they think they were, treating someone so badly just because they were different? Did they honestly believe they were better than Emily? Or anyone else, for that matter? The anger simmered beneath the surface, growing stronger with each passing minute. By the time the bell rang, signaling the end of class, Layla knew she couldn't let the matter rest. Ignoring the problem wouldn't make it go away, and staying silent would only give the bullies permission to keep hurting others. Something had to be done, and Layla realized she might be the only person brave enough to do it. She turned to Emily as they gathered their books. "Listen," Layla said quietly. "I'm going to take care of something real quick. Just stay here for a bit, okay? I'll be back soon." Emily looked confused but nodded anyway. She trusted Layla now, even if she didn't fully understand what she was planning. Without waiting for further questions, Layla slipped out of the classroom and headed straight for the cafeteria. She had a pretty good idea where the bullies would be hanging out during lunch break, the same spot they always chose, near the vending machines by the entrance. Sure enough, when she rounded the corner, she spotted them laughing loudly, surrounded by a group of hangers-on eager to bask in their reflected glory. Layla took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was about to come. Confronting bullies wasn't easy, especially when you were outnumbered, but she reminded herself why she was doing this. For Emily, for every student who felt powerless against people like them, and for herself. She deserved to walk through these halls without fear, just like everyone else. With determination burning in her chest, Layla marched over to the group. They barely acknowledged her presence at first, too busy cracking jokes and flexing their egos. But when she stopped directly in front of them, arms crossed and expression unyielding, they finally turned their attention to her. "What do you want?" The leader sneered, his tone dripping with disdain. He clearly thought he was untouchable, invincible. In his world, no one dared challenge him. "I want you to listen," Layla replied, her voice firm and unwavering. "What you did to that girl this morning, taking her cane, humiliating her, it was disgusting. You're supposed to be older, smarter, but instead you act like cowards. Picking on someone weaker than you doesn't make you tough, it makes you pathetic." The room fell eerily silent. Even the bystanders stopped talking, shocked by Layla's boldness. The bullies exchanged glances, unsure how to react. One of them laughed nervously, trying to brush off her words as if they were meaningless. But Layla didn't budge. She held her ground, meeting their gazes head on. "You think you're funny?" She pressed on, her voice rising slightly. "You think it's entertaining to ruin someone's day because they're different? Newsflash, it's not. And if you keep acting like this, sooner or later, someone's going to call you out. Might as well start getting used to it now." The leader stepped closer, attempting to intimidate her. "Who do you think you are, huh? Coming at us like you're some kind of hero?" "I'm not a hero," Layla shot back, refusing to step back. "I'm just someone who believes in doing the right thing, unlike you." Her words struck a nerve. The boy's face flushed with anger, and for a moment it seemed like he might lash out physically. But then something unexpected happened. Another student, a senior named Marcus, known for his calm demeanor, stepped forward and placed a hand on Layla's shoulder. "She's got a point," Marcus said, addressing the bullies. "You guys need to chill. Messing with people like that isn't cool, and you know it." The sudden show of support caught everyone off guard, including Layla. Embarrassed and outnumbered, the bullies muttered under their breath and stormed off, leaving the scene in silence. Layla exhaled deeply, realizing she hadn't been breathing properly during the confrontation. Though her legs felt shaky, she stood tall, knowing she'd done the right thing. When she returned to the classroom, Emily looked up expectantly. "What happened?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. "They're gone," Layla replied simply, offering a reassuring smile. "And they won't bother you again anytime soon." Though neither of them knew it yet, this moment marked the beginning of a friendship that would change both their lives forever. Layla's confrontation with the bullies didn't end quietly. As the group of boys stormed off, their faces flushed with anger and embarrassment, Layla stood her ground, refusing to let them have the last word. She knew that standing up to them wasn't just about defending Emily, it was about sending a message to everyone watching. Bullying wouldn't be tolerated, not on her watch. But as the adrenaline began to fade and reality set in, Layla realized that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The cafeteria buzzed with whispers as students tried to piece together what had just happened. Some were impressed by Layla's bravery, while others dismissed it as reckless. A few even muttered that she was asking for trouble by picking a fight with the popular crowd. Layla ignored them all, focusing instead on the task at hand, making sure Emily felt safe again. She returned to the classroom where Emily was waiting, still shaken but visibly relieved to see Layla unharmed. "What did they say?" Emily asked hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. "They didn't say much," Layla replied with a shrug, trying to downplay the tension. "But trust me, they got the message loud and clear." Emily nodded, though doubt lingered in her eyes. She wanted to believe Layla, but years of being targeted had taught her that bullies rarely gave up so easily. Still, there was something comforting about having someone like Layla in her corner, someone who refused to back down, no matter how intimidating the situation became. As the day wore on, rumors spread like wildfire through Maplewood High. By the time lunch rolled around, nearly every student seemed to know about the showdown near the vending machines. Some praised Layla for standing up to the bullies, calling her fearless and inspiring. Others criticized her, saying she'd only made things worse by stirring up trouble. The divide in opinions reflected the broader culture of the school, a mix of apathy, fear, and occasional bursts of courage. During lunch, Layla sat with Emily at a quiet corner table, away from the chaos of the cafeteria. They shared a tray of soggy fries and lukewarm pizza, neither of them particularly hungry, but grateful for the company. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt like she could breathe without constantly looking over her shoulder. Layla's presence was a shield, protecting her from the judgmental stares and snide comments that usually followed her everywhere. But despite the momentary peace, Layla couldn't shake the feeling that the bullies would retaliate. People like them didn't take kindly to being humiliated, especially in front of their peers. If anything, they'd view Layla's actions as a challenge, one they wouldn't hesitate to meet head-on. Layla braced herself for whatever came next, knowing that standing up for what was right often came with consequences. Her prediction proved accurate later that afternoon. As she walked to her locker after gym class, one of the boys from earlier, the leader of the group, cornered her in the hallway. His face was red with rage, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. He blocked her path, forcing her to stop. "You think you're tough, huh?" He spat, his voice low and menacing. "You think you can embarrass me like that and get away with it?" Layla swallowed hard, her heart pounding in her chest. She reminded herself to stay calm, to focus on the words she'd rehearsed in her mind during lunch. Standing up to bullies wasn't just about physical strength, it was about mental toughness. And Layla had plenty of that. "I'm not trying to be tough," she said evenly, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I'm just telling the truth. What you did to Emily was wrong, plain and simple. If you've got a problem with me, fine. But leave her out of it," the boy sneered, clearly unimpressed by her response. "You don't know what you're messing with," he warned, stepping closer. "People like you always think you're untouchable. But we'll see how long that lasts." Layla didn't respond, She simply stared him down, refusing to show any sign of fear. After a tense moment, the boy backed off, muttering threats under his breath as he walked away. Though she appeared composed on the outside, Layla's insides churned with anxiety. She knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Despite the looming threat, Layla refused to let fear dictate her actions. When she met up with Emily later that day, she put on a brave face, determined not to burden her new friend with unnecessary worry. Instead, they talked about lighter topics, upcoming school events, their favorite movies, and the ridiculous outfits some teachers wore. It was a welcome distraction, a reminder that life wasn't all bad even in a place like Maplewood High. Over the next few days, the atmosphere at school shifted subtly. The bullies kept their distance, likely plotting their next move, while other students began to take notice of Layla's defiance. Some approached her to express their admiration, thanking her for standing up to the bullies. Others remained skeptical, warning her to tread carefully. Layla listened to everyone but stayed true to her convictions. She believed that change started with small acts of courage, and she was determined to inspire others to follow suit. One afternoon, as Layla and Emily walked home together, they passed by a group of younger students lingering near the bus stop. One of them, a shy freshman with glasses too big for his face, was being teased by a couple of older kids. Without hesitation, Layla stepped forward, positioning herself between the boy and his tormentors. "Leave him alone," she said firmly, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Haven't you caused enough trouble for 1 week?" The older kids exchanged glances, clearly recognizing Layla from her earlier confrontation. Reluctantly, they backed off, muttering curses under their breath as they walked away. The freshman looked up at Layla with wide, grateful eyes. "Thank you," he stammered, clutching his backpack tightly. I didn't know what to do." "It's okay," Layla reassured him with a smile. "Just remember, you don't have to face things like this alone. There are people who care about you." As they continued walking, Emily glanced at Layla with newfound admiration. "You're amazing, you know that?" she said softly. "Most people wouldn't risk getting involved like that." Layla shrugged, brushing off the compliment. "It's not about being amazing. It's about doing what's right. If more people spoke up when they saw something wrong, maybe places like this wouldn't feel so hopeless." Her words stuck with Emily long after they parted ways. That night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Emily thought about everything Layla had done for her, for everyone. She realized that bravery wasn't about being fearless. It was about acting in spite of fear. And for the first time in a long time, Emily felt inspired to find her own courage. The ripple effects of Layla's actions continued to spread throughout the school. Students who had once turned a blind eye to bullying began questioning their silence. Teachers noticed the shift too, holding discussions in class about kindness, empathy, and the importance of standing up for others. While the changes were gradual, they were undeniable. Maplewood High wasn't perfect, but it was slowly becoming a better place, one act of courage at a time. For Layla, the journey was far from over. She knew that fighting against injustice was a lifelong battle, one that required patience, perseverance, and unwavering determination. But as she looked around at the growing number of allies joining her cause, she felt hopeful. Together they could create a world where no one had to suffer in silence. Not Emily, not the freshman at the bus stop, and not anyone else who felt powerless against cruelty. And so, step by step, Layla and Emily forged ahead, determined to make a difference, not just for themselves but for everyone who deserved to feel safe and valued. Word of Layla's bravery spread quickly throughout Maplewood High, sparking conversations in classrooms, hallways, and even online. Social media played its part too, with students posting snippets of what had happened, some praising Layla for standing up to the bullies, others criticizing her for causing drama. The school buzzed with opinions, and while not everyone agreed on whether Layla had done the right thing, one thing was clear: people were talking. And when people talked, things began to change. The administration couldn't ignore the growing unrest. Teachers held emergency meetings to discuss how to handle bullying more effectively, though many students felt the school had turned a blind eye to such issues for far too long. Posters about kindness and anti-bullying campaigns suddenly appeared on bulletin boards, as if trying to make up for years of neglect. Some students rolled their eyes at the sudden effort, calling it performative, but others saw it as a step in the right direction. Change, no matter how small, was still change. For Emily, life at school slowly started to improve. With Layla by her side, she felt less invisible and more empowered. The bullies kept their distance, likely scared of another confrontation with Layla, but Emily also noticed something else. Other students seemed kinder. They held doors open for her, smiled when they passed her in the hallway, and occasionally even said hello. It wasn't much, but it was enough to remind her that not everyone judged her based on her cane or her disability. Still, Emily struggled with lingering feelings of vulnerability. She couldn't shake the memory of that morning when her cane had been snatched away, leaving her feeling exposed and humiliated. At night, she replayed the scene in her mind, wondering if she could have done something differently, if she could have fought back. But every time those thoughts crept in, she reminded herself of Layla's words. "You're strong, Emily. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Inspired by Layla's courage, Emily decided to take a small step toward reclaiming her confidence. During an art class project where students were asked to create something that represented their identity, Emily chose to focus on her cane. Using acrylic paints, she transformed a plain wooden plank into a vibrant work of art, decorating it with swirling patterns, bold colors, and symbols that reflected her personality. When she presented it to the class, explaining how the cane was an extension of herself rather than a limitation, her classmates listened intently. For the first time, Emily felt proud of who she was, and it showed. Meanwhile, Layla continued to challenge the status quo. Her encounter with the bullies hadn't gone unnoticed by them, and tensions remained high. They avoided direct confrontations, but subtle acts of retaliation began surfacing. Someone scribbled mean-spirited comments on Layla's locker. Another student reported overhearing one of the boys bragging about getting even with her. Despite the threats, Layla refused to live in fear. Every insult, every attempt to intimidate her, only strengthened her resolve to fight harder. One day during lunch, Layla found herself surrounded by a group of curious students. They bombarded her with questions about why she stood up to the bullies and how she managed to stay so calm under pressure. At first, Layla hesitated to answer, unsure of what to say. But then she realized this was an opportunity to share her story, to inspire others to speak out against injustice. "I didn't do it because I wanted attention," Layla explained, her voice steady and sincere. "I did it because I believe we all deserve to feel safe and respected no matter who we are. Bullying doesn't just hurt the person being targeted, it affects everyone around them. When we stay silent, we let the bullies win. But when we stand together, we can make a difference." Her words resonated deeply with many of the students present. Some nodded in agreement while others looked thoughtful as if seeing the issue in a new light. One girl raised her hand timidly and asked, "What can we do to help? I don't want to be part of the problem anymore." Layla smiled, encouraged by the question. "Start small," she advised. "Speak up when you see someone being treated unfairly. Offer support to those who need it. And most importantly, don't be afraid to ask for help if you're struggling. None of us has to face these challenges alone." That conversation planted the seed of an idea in Layla's mind, an idea that would grow into something much bigger than she ever imagined. Over the next few days, she brainstormed ways to turn her vision into reality. She envisioned creating a space where students could come together to discuss issues like bullying, discrimination, and mental health. A place where everyone felt heard and valued. With Emily's encouragement, Layla decided to take action. She approached Mrs. Patel, the school counselor, with her proposal. At first, Mrs. Patel was skeptical, worried that such an initiative might stir up controversy. But Layla persisted, sharing stories of students who had been affected by bullying and explaining how a supportive community could prevent similar incidents in the future. Eventually, Mrs. Patel agreed to help. recognizing the importance of addressing these issues head-on. Together, Layla and Mrs. Patel organized a series of workshops aimed at fostering empathy and understanding among students. Topics ranged from identifying signs of bullying to practicing active listening and conflict resolution. Guest speakers were invited to share their experiences, including a local advocate who had overcome adversity as a disabled individual and a former bully who spoke candidly about regretting his past actions. Each session left participants with a deeper appreciation for the power of compassion and solidarity. To complement the workshops, Layla launched a campaign called Stand Together. The initiative encouraged students to celebrate diversity and embrace differences through creative activities. For example, on Mismatched Socks Day, students wore mismatched socks to symbolize uniqueness and acceptance. On Kindness Week, students wrote positive notes to one another, filling the walls of the cafeteria with messages of encouragement. These efforts may have seemed small, but their impact was profound. As the weeks went by, the culture of Maplewood High began to shift. Students who had once mocked Emily now greeted her warmly. Others who had silently endured bullying found the courage to speak up, knowing they wouldn't face judgment. Even some of the bullies, sensing the tide turning against them, toned down their behavior. While not everyone changed overnight, progress was undeniable. Emily noticed the difference firsthand. Walking through the halls no longer felt like navigating a minefield. Instead, she encountered smiles and nods of acknowledgement, reminders that she belonged just as much as anyone else. Her friendship with Layla blossomed into something unbreakable, built on mutual trust and admiration. Together, they proved that two voices could spark a movement, one rooted in resilience, empathy, and hope. But perhaps the greatest testament to their efforts came during a school assembly. As Layla stood on stage addressing the entire student body, she reflected on everything they had achieved together. "Change isn't easy," she admitted, her voice filled with emotion. "It takes time, patience, and a lot of hard work. But if we stand together, there's nothing we can't overcome. Let's keep building a school where everyone feels safe, supported, and valued. Because when we lift each other up, we all rise higher." The auditorium erupted in applause, a standing ovation that brought tears to Layla's eyes. Beside her, Emily clapped enthusiastically, pride swelling in her chest. For the first time in a long time, both girls felt hopeful about the future, not just for themselves, but for everyone at Maplewood High. The momentum of Stand Together continued to grow, spreading beyond the walls of Maplewood High and into the wider community. What started as a small initiative led by Layla and Emily became a beacon of hope for students, teachers, and even parents who had long felt powerless against bullying and prejudice. The campaign's message of unity and acceptance resonated deeply, inspiring others to take action in their own lives. One of the most impactful events organized by Layla and her growing team was Unity Day. It wasn't just about mismatched socks or colorful posters. It was about creating a space where everyone could feel seen and celebrated. Students spent weeks preparing for the event, designing banners, rehearsing performances, and brainstorming ways to make it inclusive for all. On the day itself, the school transformed into a vibrant tapestry of creativity and connection. Unity Day kicked off with an assembly in the gymnasium. Layla stood at the podium, flanked by Emily and several other students who had become key members of the Stand Together movement. As she addressed the crowd, her voice carried a mix of determination and gratitude. "Today isn't just about celebrating differences," she said, pausing to let her words sink in. "It's about recognizing that our differences are what make us stronger. When we embrace them instead of fearing them, we create a world where no one has to feel alone." The audience erupted into cheers, holding up signs they'd made with messages like "Be kind," "You belong here," and "Different is beautiful." Teachers wiped away tears, moved by the sight of their students coming together in such a meaningful way. Even some of the skeptics, those who had initially dismissed the campaign as naive or unrealistic, couldn't help but feel inspired. After the assembly, students participated in workshops and activities designed to foster empathy and understanding. In one corner of the cafeteria, a group of students learned how to use sign language, guided by a volunteer from the local deaf community. Nearby, Another station offered virtual reality experiences that allowed participants to see the world through the eyes of someone with a disability. These immersive activities opened minds and hearts, helping students better understand the challenges faced by their peers. Emily played a central role in organizing the art exhibit, which showcased pieces created by students reflecting themes of identity, resilience, and inclusion. Her decorated cane took center stage, drawing admiration from visitors. Many students stopped to ask her about its design, sparking conversations about disability and representation. For Emily, this was more than just an art project. It was a chance to rewrite the narrative surrounding her condition, turning something that once made her feel ashamed into a source of pride. As the day unfolded, stories of courage and kindness emerged. A senior boy admitted during a panel discussion that he used to tease classmates for being different, but had since realized the harm his words caused. He apologized publicly, vowing to be part of the solution rather than the problem. Another student shared how participating in the campaign had helped her overcome years of self-doubt, reminding her that she wasn't alone in her struggles. By the time Unity Day came to a close, the sense of accomplishment was palpable. Students hugged each other goodbye, promising to carry the spirit of the event forward. Layla and Emily stood side by side, watching the scene unfold with a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. They had poured their hearts into making this day happen, and seeing its impact was worth every late night and early morning. But the effects of Unity Day didn't stop there. News of the event reached local media outlets, drawing attention from reporters eager to highlight positive stories in a world often dominated by negativity. Articles appeared in newspapers, interviews aired on radio shows, and social media buzzed with photos and videos from the day. Community leaders praised Maplewood High for setting an example of how schools could address issues like bullying and discrimination head-on. Inspired by the success of Unity Day, Layla decided to expand STAND, Together Beyond the School. She reached out to nearby high schools, inviting them to join the movement. Together they formed a coalition aimed at promoting inclusivity and combating hate. Monthly meetings brought students from different schools together, fostering friendships and collaboration across districts. Layla and Emily traveled to these meetings whenever possible, sharing their journey and encouraging others to start similar initiatives in their own communities. Back at Maplewood High, the changes continued to ripple outward. Teachers incorporated lessons on empathy and diversity into their curriculums, ensuring that discussions about inclusion remained a priority. The administration implemented stricter policies regarding bullying, taking reports seriously and involving parents and counselors when necessary. While not every issue disappeared overnight, the overall atmosphere improved significantly. For Emily, the transformation was profound. Gone were the days when she dreaded coming to school, fearing judgment or ridicule. Instead, she walked through the halls with her head held high, confident in who she was. Her friendship with Layla had blossomed into something unbreakable, built on mutual respect and shared experiences. Together, they proved that strength wasn't about facing challenges alone. It was about leaning on others when needed and lifting them up in return. Layla, too, found herself changed by everything that had happened. She had always believed in standing up for what was right, but leading Stand Together taught her the true power of collective action. No single person could solve the world's problems, but when people united around a common cause, amazing things could happen. She also discovered a newfound passion for advocacy, realizing that her voice mattered, not just within the confines of Maplewood High, but in the broader fight for justice and equality. As graduation approached, both girls reflected on how far they'd come. Emily planned to attend a local college, where she hoped to study graphic design and continue using art as a tool for expression. Layla dreamed of pursuing a career in education, determined to create classrooms where every student felt valued and supported. Though their paths might diverge after high school, they promised to stay connected, knowing that their bond would endure whatever life threw their way. On their final day of school, Layla and Emily walked the familiar hallways. One last time, the memories flooded back, the laughter, the tears, the moments of triumph and vulnerability. As they reached the front steps, they paused to look back at the building that had shaped them in so many ways. "We did good, didn't we?" Emily asked, smiling softly. "We sure did," Layla replied, returning the smile. "And this is just the beginning." With that, they stepped outside, ready to face whatever lay ahead. They knew the road wouldn't always be easy, but they also knew they weren't alone. Together, they had proven that even in the face of cruelty, kindness, and courage could spark change, not just in themselves, but in the world around them. And as they walked away, hand in hand, they carried that truth with them, lighting the way for others to follow.